All right, so it is now 7:00 p.m. It's time for our legislative meeting for October of 2016. I call the meeting to order. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's nice to see everybody here tonight. Thank you for coming. Let's start with the roll call, please.
President Dover,
Present.
Vice President Jones, Commissioner Scholar,
Present.
Commissioner Williams,
Present.
Commissioner Dara,
Present.
Commissioner Stone,
Here.
Manager Patterson. Here.
We have a quorum present. Thank you, everybody. Let's start with the motion to approve the workshop meeting minutes.
Move that we approve the minutes of the workshop meeting of October 10, 2016.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Mark Turnley is here tonight to present us with our 2015 audit. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, thanks for having me here this evening. Normally when we conclude our audit, we put the audit report in nice fancy covers, but our copier wasn't cooperating with us today with lines and things of that nature. So as soon as we get that fixed up tomorrow, we'll make sure we get the final ones in bound covers. But I wanted to just go over some of the highlights of this report. I know this is the first time you're getting a chance to see it. It's a thick document, so I'm just going to refer you to some highlights in the report, and we can talk about those two other pieces of correspondence that I set in front of you this evening. A lot of times we do this a little earlier in the year, present the audit report because we're already in October, but the reason for a delay this year was this is the first year of implementation of what was known in our profession as GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. Number 68 came out a few years ago and required to be implemented for 2015 for all municipalities, in particular this year at Aleppo Township. It had to do with valuing your pension plan liability, and it had to be completed by an actuary. And so that information didn't come in until about 3 weeks ago for the township. So as soon as we got that, we were able to put the final pieces of the puzzle together to conclude this audit. But the actual numbers that are under a modified accrual were done a while back in the early summer, but we had to have that information in the body of this report in order to keep your report what is known as unqualified. So in the beginning of this audit report, probably the most important thing I need to tell you is on Roman numeral pages 1 and 2, which is the independent auditor's opinion. We've issued, like we have in the past, what's known as an unmodified opinion. And what that basically means is that the financial statements that are included in the body of the audit report are in conformity with the rules and regulations of our profession, known as generally accepted accounting principles. And in layman's terms, that's a good thing. That's the type of report you want to have, no qualifications. Following that section of the report is a section called the Management Discussion and Analysis. And that's on Roman numeral pages 3 through 13. That is a requirement to be included in the body of the audit report. And basically, it's a synopsis of how the township did for the year, but it also presents comparative information, 2015, 2014, so that the reader of the financial statements, if he were not a member of the board and wanted to know something about the municipality, how you did the year from a financial perspective, they could turn to that section of the report, Roman numerals 3 through 13, and get an idea, a short picture of how you did for the year, not only 15, but for 14, and why there were certain increases or decreases in certain line items. So I think it's a good document to have in the report, and it provides some good information to kind of ascertain how you did for the year. That net pension obligation, just to talk about that for 1 second, not very high for the police pension plan simply because of the status of your pension plan, but that net pension calculation by your actuaries just added another basically $7,000 of liability onto your balance sheet. So it really wasn't a significant item, but nevertheless, it had to be disclosed in your audit report. Those of you that have been on the board before would notice if you looked at your last year's report and this year's report's a lot thicker simply because of that GASB 68. There's a lot of note disclosure information, no matter how big or small your liability is, telling the reader of these financial statements how the actuaries come up with their liability. So it adds about 10 pages to your notes and another 3 pages of schedules in the back, probably none of which you'll care or even worry about going forward, but nevertheless mandatory to be in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. Now, just to look how you did for the year, I'm just going to reference a couple pages which the board is more familiar with and how you deal on an annual basis is the operations of your general fund and all of your other funds. So if you'd be kind enough to turn to page 3, regular page 3 in the audit report, I'll just call your attention to certain numbers on that particular page. In the first column.
Nope, sorry, I'm not there yet.
Oh.
1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you.
On the first column on that page, the biggest, largest, most important operating fund of the township is your general fund. And if you look down at the bottom, the most important line item there is total fund balance. And you can see a total fund balance of $1,265,000 ending the year ended December 31st, 2015. As you'll see in a minute or so, that's almost a break even from 2014 to 2015, a very little increase between years. Just to kind of define that fund balance for the board so they understand what that means or the importance of that fund balance. If you look at the line that says unassigned fund balance, that $1,194,000, what that means is that money's available for general operating purposes. It's not encumbered for any particular restricted reason. How does that compare to other municipalities? Well, that's all dependent on the liquidity needs of each municipality. You know, I used to tell my boards, for school districts, the Department of Education has always said an adequate fund balance, or the fund balance that they shoot for, should be a fund balance that's anywhere between 5 and 15% of their approved budget on an annual basis. I have some school districts that have 70%. I have some that are actually in the red. It all depends each year on what their liquidity needs are. But there never was a definitive number for a municipality. But about a month ago, one of my other township clients had called me and said, "Mark, what's a recommended fund balance for a municipality?" So I did a little research and I talked to some people up at DCED and I said, "Do you have any documentation, any authoritative guidance on the type of fund balance that a municipality should maintain?" And they went through their archives and he basically showed me a document that says it should be no less than 5% of your annual budget. So that leaves a lot of room for where your fund balance could go. For you at Aleppo Township, your fund balance is approximately 90% of your annual budget. So that the language in this document from DCED only says it should be no less than 5%. It doesn't cap it at a number above and beyond that. So that's up for the board to decide. And one of my comments in one of these ancillary letters that I handed you this evening, one of my management letter, was for the township to consider adopting what is known as a fund balance policy. And what a fund balance policy does is it kind of places, once the board adopts that type of policy, it kind of you put restrictions on yourself with regard to the level that you want your fund balance to go to. And I'm going to give Gwen some copies of fund balance policies written by other clients of mine. Sometimes they will put a maximum on it. And what they'll do is if they're over that maximum, they'll transfer those excess funds possibly to a capital improvement fund for prudence sake in case you have infrastructure problems down the road where you can put money away for a rainy day and you don't have to necessarily incur additional debt in order to achieve those capital expenditures. So there's a number of ways to handle your fund balance, but as you look at this at a point in the future, after you get a chance to look at this boilerplate copy, you'll see that they just provide guidance on what you want to do, how much of it you want to commit for a particular purpose, and how much you want available for general operations. So I think it's a good policy to have going forward for the township. The other funds, how you got to this particular fund balance, if you'd be kind enough to turn to page 5. Page 5 is the short synopsis of a profit and loss for the year for each of your funds, but in particular, still dealing with the general fund. As I had mentioned to you earlier, if you look down at the last 3 lines on this particular page, the third line from the bottom says net change in fund balances, and you can see for the general fund, as I had mentioned to you earlier, you had excess revenues over expenditures for the year of $8,855. So you can see that your fund balance from the beginning of the year to the end of the year changed very little. Other funds that where it says debt service fund and non-major governmental funds, the debt service fund, obviously money's coming into are being paid into the township to pay out certain debt service obligations on your guaranteed sewer revenue bonds. In the past, it was series of 2011. In 2015, you refunded those bonds with a new debt issue, the series of 2015. Money's coming into the township to pay for the debt service obligation on those bonds. That's what that fund's about. And then you see a column that says non-major governmental funds. In the back of the audit report on page, so I direct you in the right area, there's a schedule that breaks down what those individual pages are on page 41, and I think in this draft copy it may be out of sync in the back, but on page 41 there's a profit and loss statement in the back, and it tells you what each of your non-major funds are, and they basically include your highway aid fund, your liquid fuels money you get for road improvements. You have a capital improvement fund. You transferred $357,000 from that capital improvement fund into your general fund during 2015 to pay for public works highway expenditures to reimburse the general fund. You have an infrastructure fund and a construction fund. And so you can see what, and that column that we were just talking about up front on page 5 where it says other funds, non-major funds, these are those other funds that we're talking about. These are pots of money that are restricted for a particular purpose by Aleppo Township and not used for general operations, but rather as designated by the board members. So I just wanted to call your attention to that. Schedules that I think are important for the board to look at in the process of the annual budget process and just to see how you did for the year. Starting on page 34 in the audit report, I have a schedule in there. 34 and 35 deal with revenues, and then page 36 are expenditures. For your general fund, that provides a detail of all your line item revenues, how you budgeted versus what the actual dollars were at. And when you look at that, you can see variances up and down as you go through that, and can see how you did in managing your money versus your budget during the year. And again, the revenues are on page 34 and 35, 2 pages long. The expenditures a little longer, starting on page 36. And once again, the detailed line items of revenue and expenses that the board budgeted, approved in their budget, starting for 2015. And this is how you ended up for the year. Another 2 funds of the township, just to bring to your attention, if you'd be kind enough to turn to page 9. Once again, I apologize for flipping you around, but I just wanted to touch on some of the highlights. On page 9 is how your 2 pension funds did for the year. Once again, a profit and loss statement, if you will, for your police pension fund and your non-uniform pension fund. Again, looking at the last 3 lines on this particular page gives you the information that you want to know. Change in net position. The police pension fund went down approximately $22,550, whereas the non-uniform plan went up by $7,778 for various reasons as you look through the numbers, the income and expenses related to these 2 plans. The middle of the audit report, after page 9, page 10, are the notes to the financial statements. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the notes contain information, a lot of information this year, additional information with regard to that GASB 68 new liability, that net pension liability, but they run all the way through page 33. The purpose of the notes to the financial statements is if you're looking at a particular number on the balance sheet, whether it be cash, receivables, things of that nature, it's a good bet that if you look in the notes to the financial statements, you'll see a breakdown of what that particular number is comprised of. It just provides the reader of the financial statements with a little more in-depth picture of what the numbers on the balance sheet, on the statement of net position, and on all the balance sheets represent as you go through the audit report. So in a nutshell, once again, a lot of information to digest, but I just wanted to call your attention to certain pages in the report that are highlights with regard to how the township did for calendar year 2015. As I had mentioned to you before, two other pieces of correspondence dated for this evening that I wanted to bring to your attention briefly is one is both dated for this evening. One's first bullet point says significant audit findings. It says qualitative aspects of accounting practices, if you have that one in your hand. That's a required communication to the board at the conclusion of the audit engagement that came out about 5 years ago. Basically, the auditor, at the conclusion of his engagement, is required to inform the board if there were any issues in dealing with management in terms of trying to perform the audit. Were there any obstacles that we had to face, any disagreements with management in trying to derive the numbers that we needed to perform the audit. It's a fairly vanilla report, and as you read through there, can be technical somewhat, but the bottom line is that we did not have any disagreements with management, and the office folks were cooperative and enabled us to do our job as smoothly and efficiently as we could during the course of the year. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Also, another letter for this evening also is our management letter, our annual recommendations to the board. Some of these recommendations are continuing recommendations from the prior year. A lot of this has to do with the size of the municipality you are. The first comment on their external financial statement preparation, as we do for most of our municipalities, we prepare the financial statements that we've talked about tonight. Normally, that's not the folks interналly's area of expertise. And when you have the outside audit firm prepare those financial statements for you from information that you give me, we have to note that to the board as an issue in internal control. That's a mandatory disclosure to the Board of Commissioners that we prepare those financial statements for you. It's not something that the township gives us for our review. Also, a couple other matters on the second page, talk about township policies. That's the one I had mentioned to you briefly before, was that in accordance with GASB 54, they recommend that you establish a fund balance policy. And with your level of fund balance, I think it would be a very good idea to start to manage that fund balance to the point where you're deciding on what you want it to be, and if there are any excesses or declines from that, what would you want to do with those funds in order to move money to where the township may consider additional capital improvements in the future. And then the last comment on the last page is bank reconciliation comment we've had. I've talked to Gwen about this. There are certain transfers and items. All the receipts and disbursements during the course of the year are properly run through the system, but there are certain times when revenues and expenditures, usually transfers between funds, are not recorded in the books. They're maintained manually on Gwen's ledger card as she tracks cash during the year, but those journal entries don't necessarily get made into the books. And as part of what we do when we close out our audit process, we move that money into the proper pot. It's not as if there's any missing monies, it's just which pot it's in. And so I always recommend to Gwen that try to make those adjustments during the year before the audit firm comes in, and then you don't even have, this comment goes away, you don't even have to worry about it. So somewhat similar comments to prior years. And I think that's it. I think those are the main items that I wanted to talk to you about. If you have any questions at this point, once again, I'll answer them if I can. But if you get a chance to digest this report and you have questions for me, And you want to contact me either through Gwen or call my office directly. I'm always available to answer any questions on where these numbers were derived, if Gwen is not available to answer that question for you.
Thank you.
Very good. Anybody have any questions now? Thank you kindly.
Okay, thank
Well, I
you.
do have a question.
Yes.
When you talk about that fund balance
Yes.
and moving some of that, or just making decisions about what to do with that money, is it recommended that a fund balance this large is not good to have? Or, I mean, is that what you're saying, or it should be? You can say it, it's okay. I couldn't think.
I'm not sure I would, that's a good point. I'm not sure I would characterize it as not a good thing to have. I think it's prudent. You have not raised taxes, so it's not as if you're.
Well, quite the opposite. I mean, we've actually had this fund balance, and a couple of years ago, we reduced taxes. So, right, when was that? 3-4 years ago? We lowered the millage 3 years ago.
So I think the township is, I mean, I can say this just from an independent perspective, very prudent in the management of your money. I would simply say, though, that for unrestricted, which is what that is,
Right.
it's probably a lot to have in an undesignated category. Once again, I would consider transferring a portion of that to a capital improvement fund and restricting it to that, so that you take it out of your general fund for a rainy day for that period. Now, you can, obviously, you don't have to do that. You can pay for capital expenditures out of your general fund. There's
Right.
nothing
Yeah, I
stopping
mean,
you to do that.
what difference does it make?
It's like
That's my
creating a
whole
reserve in your mind.
point. Just so we know it's not there and we forget about it.
Well,
or
if it's not in the unrestricted category, then you have to
you have
meet
to-
the restrictions for spending it.
Okay.
I think sometimes you may have needs, and please take this the right way, you may have needs that you're not even thinking about, anticipate. And if I'm a taxpayer and I'm looking at your fund balance, and I see I see this
Right.
level dollar, I might say to
I
myself,
agree.
you should lower taxes further. We would
I
like some of
agree.
that back to ours. Whereas I'm suggesting to you, what the
Well,
taxpayer
that's
may
my
not
point.
understand is, hey,
That's-
I got infrastructure concerns down the road, and if I give that money back now and we have a problem, we're gonna really be in a problem. So if you
Okay.
earmark it for a particular area, that might be the prudent thing to do. And this fund balance policy, not to belabor this, but the importance of establishing this policy, and you'll get a chance to read it when Gwen, it allows you to not necessarily physically transfer that money to another fund. Like you said, what's the difference? But what it allows you to do within the general fund, if you saw on that one page where I had general fund, where I had unrestricted, there are two other categories. One is called committed and one is called assigned. So the board, through action, through resolution, can simply say, we want to assign $300,000 of that for a new roof. We want to assign blah, blah, blah for this. And then at the end of the year, even during the year, but at the end of the year in the audit report, that fund balance then, when it shows in the audit report, is broken down into those categories, so that your undesignated, that bottom line number that I told you was 90% of your budget, that may end up being 30% of your budget, so that the taxpayers can see, hey, we have all potential obligations that we may have to fund in the future, and this is our method of setting this money aside to attack those issues as they arise. So again, just something to consider.
It's a good point. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
Have a
much.
nice evening.
You too, thank you.
Next on our agenda are our reports. Let's start with public safety.
Joanne, I'm always up for bonuses in case you're looking.
No, we're not giving you a bonus. You'll take it to eBay and you'll buy more cards.
Always account police activity in Lippert Township for the month of September. Alarms residents, 1, alarms business, 3. Theft report. This was over at the village, Sonny Village. believe it's internal. A couple cards were taken from someone's wallet or purse. Got a lot of fraud cases. 1, 2. Even after we do our stories, people still get hung up in these things. Little 4.
For what?
Fraud cases. You know, when you're on your computer and you're on a link somewhere and all of a sudden something pops up and says your computer is infected
You've
and all
got to
that.
call Microsoft.
Yeah, there's 2 of them where people end up sending money to these goofs, and it's just a scam. Another one is the IRS one. Nothing, no funds were transferred. Another one, person's Amazon numbers were stolen. They go on. I mean, it's just we got to keep telling people that these things are frauds, and hopefully, there's 4 that happened. If we don't do a class, how many do you have? Maybe you got 12 or 20. Who knows? So we just got to keep doing it and refresh that in everyone's mind.
Yeah, Chief,
Yes, sir.
they had a fraud meeting over at Masonic Village. Did you participate in that, or is that internal? Because I was gone. I was in this area. I only heard about it
We did one not too long ago over there.
about the last 3 weeks or so.
No, it was longer than that.
Longer than that. Okay, well, apparently we've had some issues,
Yeah.
and the management over there
They gotta keep
ran a
doing it.
program, and all the kind of things that you mentioned are highlighted.
Yeah, it's so common, and it's not elderly people either. It is just
No.
everybody.
People can't catch on. It's you do one thing, hang up.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, and they're good at it. They know what they're doing. Unauthorized use. This is a young man that took his mom's car and he wasn't allowed to have it, so she reported to the police. Motor vehicle accident. We did have a DOA. It was a drug overdose. A noise call reported by neighbors, and it was a young man lifting weights in the basement. I guess he was
Grunting.
grunting. There you go. Thanks, man. Grunting. It was making a lot of noise. They were concerned. Disabled vehicle. Was a fire call. Someone was smoked from cooking in a microwave. Some traffic problems. Individual on Merriman Road was working on his car on the side of the road, so he put a little cone sign up, asked people to slow down while he's working on his car. So someone called him. Apparently it was pretty far on the road. This is a water leak from Merriman and Redgate. Tree down. Several animal complaints. They lost dogs. 2 dogs running at large. Someone found a box containing 3 kittens in it in their front porch. The officer attempted to take the animal friends. They were closed for an event, so he took them down to the Humane Society down on the north side, and they took them.
Could have given it to the lady in the sign.
Yeah, I think she has enough. More animal complaints. Someone saw a deer laying in the woods and thought it was injured, but it was not injured. Another traffic accident. And some of these are happening out on the interstate, but they're actually in Aleppo. And Swiftly Police had a hit and run from an individual. The car came back to an individual we know well, and we attempted to locate the car for him, and it was found down on Scape and State Road. And that's all I have. Anyone has any question?
Speaking about the IRS calls, I don't know if you saw in the news that in India, they raided that whole building of men, and I use men, I don't know if it was men or women, but that were making these IRS calls.
Yeah,
It was a call center.
Yeah.
it's unusual to get another government to.
Right, because
That was
that's, there's many call centers in India.
Anything else?
The drug overdose,
What do you do?
is there any more you can tell us about that?
It was an individual who had previous issues with substance abuse, and his friend hadn't heard from him in a while, and kept texting him and calling him, and when he didn't, then he he went to the house and bought him the house, and it was,
Was he dead?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah, getting to become a pretty common occurrence. We now have Narcan.
I was gonna say, do you have, are you carrying?
Yeah, and
Is
the
it-
day after we got it, we had a young girl, 24 years old. We saved her, but we've had probably, in 4 months, we've probably had 4 saves so far. And this is our area. I mean, other places, it's just rampant. We have one on the interstate, you know, if you're coming out Montego Road and you're at the jewelry store, you see the interstate behind the jewelry store, Trinity. Guys on the interstate just comes to a complete stop, nods off. Whenever our guys in the state get there at the same time, he had his foot on the brake and he was slumped over the wheel. Car was still running and he's parked in the lane of traffic. And they couldn't revive him. They had to bust the window in, and then they gave him Narcan and he came to.
He did come to,
Yeah. They usually do.
while he was driving.
Yeah, he just nodded off and right in the lane of traffic.
Amazing. Now, is that given, that's nasally?
Yeah,
right?
it's a little,
Nasally.
just a little sponge. We have a syringe. We pull it into the syringe, put the little cone sponge on
Awesome.
each side. Man, it's like that. That's how quick it works. It's unbelievable. The first time you see it, you just can't believe
I
it.
mean, I'm used to IV, but
Yeah.
that's me, not what you would use.
You know, the medics will use IV.
Yeah.
But we have to use it.
Well, it's fine, yeah.
Mm.
Whatever
Yeah, it's
works,
unfortunate, but
I
it's back
guess.
to life. Anything else?
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Fire Department,
No,
Emergency Management.
You have a report, that's what I just put out in front of you. Judy prepared a report. She couldn't be here tonight, she's out of town. But I talked to her about some of the things that we have been talking about, and so she gave an update. And the emergency operations plan is complete and compliant, but we need to update new members to new office positions and need to re-adopt it in 2017 for the beginning of the year. She did a presentation over at Masonic for their health and wellness committee, and they have a safety committee or something, and they were concerned that there wasn't an emergency plan, but it apparently went very well. Her presentation over there, everyone seemed pleased that we seem to be on top of things in case of an emergency or a disaster. We need to have an emergency operations drill at some point, and we're aiming for early next year, a quieter time of year, to do some kind of emergency operations drill, maybe February or something. And then she said that the county announced that there are some new grant programs, so she's going to be looking into those grant programs and see if there are anything that we can apply for.
Okay.
So it's a pretty thorough report, so if you want to
Looks like.
read it on your own time rather than right now. I mean, she's knows what she's talking about and is working on stuff, so.
I got some emails recently about, it looked as if the training that we did 8 months, 12 months, whatever it was, when we did that computerized training,
Mhm.
we had to sign up for some account. It
Okay.
looks like that system is being migrated to a new system, and I got emails telling me that I needed to start participating in the new system. Nobody else got that?
I didn't get
No,
that.
I didn't get that.
PA Trains or something like that it's called now.
It's not ringing a bell.
Let me go look at that again.
And I know, speaking of training, I know that since we have some new board members, we
I
have
never
to,
did it,
I think we had to have a majority of the board members. So we have to look in to see,
because I was like.
if we need to
I was
have
out.
3 or 5 or however many people need to be to complete the training.
Okay. Public Works.
The report for Tim and Jim, who are our public works guys right now still. Tom is still out on medical leave, but is doing really well.
He's
and
doing well.
Expected
I
back
saw
soon.
him,
Yeah, he's doing very well. He wants to come back and is hopefully going to get cleared, he thinks, by the end of the month, so. But for, the last month, they checked the roads, cut the grass. They're working on a big stormwater project over on South McCoy. They added a new catch basin, some 100 feet of drain pipe, and some curbing to stop some runoff that's been running down into certain residents' yards. So they've been working on this project over there, and that's been they've been doing it in all their free time, so it's been taking a while. They helped flag traffic for the water authority. They were mortaring and repairing some other catch basins, and the other kinds of things: repair signs, remove dead animals, standard stuff.
Any questions on Public Works? Communications. My report is that we're getting ready to do a recording in November with Allegheny County. Councilman Tom Baker, who is our Allegheny County councilman, is going to help us get with the Department of Aging and do some presentations on county programs that are available to Aleppo residents with respect to aging. I talked to our state senator at the Meet the Candidates night the other night, and he and I may do a legislative update, but that'll probably be in the first quarter of 2017. On sort of a different front, Gwen and I were talking about perhaps at some point making an improvement to this room by hanging a screen and a projector that would make it so that we could have a computer display up there, so that if we're looking at maps, we came to talking about it as we were talking about the ridge, and that it would be easier if during meetings, rather than sort of thinking things out, we were looking at videos. So we got a bid on that was just shy of $2,500, right, Gwen?
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. And I don't think that we're at the point where we're asking for funds for that, because I think we're going to budget that into 2017. Am I speaking accurately?
Yes.
So we'll budget that into we'll put that in the 2017 budget and come back and talk about that some other time. And that's it.
Speaking of ridge pictures, in the diagram you showed us last week that had showed that potential right-of-way for the emergency exit.
Mhm.
I noticed in my daily walks around, that's all trees. It wouldn't be just putting down some gravel. There's a whole bunch of trees that have to come out.
down too. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's wooded. There's a wooded barrier between those houses on Vecchio and then the manor.
And the one up further that we talked about as a possibility,
Mhm.
it'd end up right in the guy's front yard.
Yeah, you would knock the value of that property down significantly. All right, planning and zoning.
Nothing new from last week.
Tax collector.
Good evening. How's everybody?
Good, thanks.
Provided a report for you for this month. Page 2 has all of September's numbers. So the top of the chart there has the taxes that were collected for September. And then page 1 is obviously just a running total for you to kind of see. So for the month of September, I have calculated $28,977.78 in taxes collected. On page 3 and 4 of all the graphs, again, kind of goes into the taxes comparing September of this year to September of last year. We're about $10,000 off, $9,800 actually. We're about $22,000 off from our budget amount, so we still have 3 months to go yet with taxes collected. So we're approaching what we had budgeted so far with that, but you can kind of take a look at some of that. And then there's also the 2015 numbers. And so compared to last year, we're about $33,000 off, which is the last graph there. So we're still pretty much on target for our tax collection going forward there. So anybody have any questions about that? Okay, as far as the treasurer account, I provided also on that second page with the taxes that were collected for the month of September. You have the PNC account, the invest, liquid fuels, all of those things. So total monies on hand for the month of September was $1,583,221.81. When you take out the pledged funds and the targeted funds, we have net operating funds of $1,420,635.18.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So in short, you think we're gonna hit it?
What's that?
So in short, you think we're gonna hit it?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Might actually get a little bit over,
We'll forgive you.
which is a good thing.
All right, on our finance agenda, we have a motion to approve the September bill list.
I make a motion to approve the September bill list in the amount of $31,336.15. To ratify the September prepaid bills in the amount of $6,866.47. And to ratify September payroll transfer in the amount of $14,863.93.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you all. Aleppo Township Authority.
I make a motion to appoint Michael Lee to the Aleppo Township Authority Board for the balance of the term ending December 31st, 2019. Michael Lee, she was here.
Which one is that?
The first one.
Okay,
I like them both.
they'll
They're
both be here.
good.
They'll
How
both-
come the other one's
You got
January?
one now, got one in December. Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Anybody have any further discussion? I have further discussion. I talked to George tonight, and he asked me to express his preference that Paula, second candidate we just met, right, be the one that we appoint now, and Michael we appoint in January.
Why? Because we have things set up. Go ahead.
His thought was that that he thought Paula's strength lied more in finance, and that he thought that the finance issues were more pressing immediately, and Michael's strengths could be played to more in January. So I'm just relaying another commissioner's view who's not here.
Mhm.
I personally like them both.
So I think they're both great candidates. George and I had talked about this 2 or 3 times. And my point was that since I've been sitting on the authority board, that we need some operations people in there as soon as humanly possible, because they've been a little shallow for some time. That was the major outcome of the discussion. The only financial things that we have is that we don't have a fund, which is a pretty dire thing, but that's going to have to be picked up over a year or so. But that was also mentioned in the Moody's report.
Is it for sure that there's going to be a resignation or
There already has been a resignation for
second one?
second one, the person's term ends
Okay.
on December 31st. So yeah, it's firm.
So unless we reappoint that person.
Right. Can we act now to appoint the successor for that term that expires?
I'm sorry again?
I think
Can we-
we have to wait till
I
they.
don't think you can only appoint to fill a vacancy. There's no vacancy until there's a resignation.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've had one resignation and the other one is a term.
Expires.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, the motion on the table is to appoint Michael Lee to the Aleppo Township Authority Board for the balance of a term ending December 31st, 2019. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations, Michael Lee.
I'll let her know. And just for your information, Gwen, I thought I was intended to call you, but I don't remember doing it. But when we had the candidates day up at Masonic Village, John Seifert and Michael Lee were brought together by me, so they're aware of having both met.
Good. QB I have no report, except to ask if everybody has filled out their survey. I'm going to a COG meeting on Wednesday, and she's going to ask me.
I have failed.
Has anybody filled out their survey?
What survey?
Uh,
That's even better, right? What survey?
Gwen, will you please send around a link to the survey
I
again?
will.
Have you
From the
filled out?
presentation, that was from the presentation that we had before.
She wasn't here.
I wasn't
Now,
here.
now the key question, have you done?
I'm gonna send around a link for everyone to follow.
The key question is whether I have done it.
I'm not
And
gonna
with
ask.
with a pretty emphatic mic drop, I can say I have done it. So it does not take long.
But I can't do it because I wasn't here.
Oh, you can do
Yes,
it.
you can do it.
I can still do it.
Mhm.
Okay.
She wants you to do it.
Okay.
All right, well, I've extinguished my obligation by asking you if you've done it.
What is, I'm refresh my memory, what is the meeting on the call? It's coming up?
Oh, we meet every month.
Yeah, I mean, is this one any different than the others?
No, except that she's been going, I mean, the meeting we had last week here,
Yeah.
she's been doing with all the COG communities.
Okay,
And she's been asking everybody to fill out the survey at all the meetings. And she's going to aggregate that data to start to come up with some sort of her priorities. And you'll see when you do that survey, it's
a good survey.
an interesting exercise.
yeah, I looked at it, I just didn't fill it out.
What is important to you? And she gives you a whole list of things. So it might sort of identify things that we're going to start looking at. Do you have anything about the COG from the managers meeting, Gwen?
No.
Okay. Ambulance Authority?
No report, meeting was canceled.
Okay. MS4?
No report.
You know, I got, as to marry communications and MS4, I got to thinking that maybe why we have an authority and how to take good care of our storm drains would be an interesting communications video. What do you think about that? And could we tie that into MS4? It's a better question.
We could, and I want to walk back my no report. I actually have something to report that two public works guys are going to go to an MS4 training session on proper ways to clean and monitor catch basins, and hopefully they're going to gather reporting forms, which will help, that are like DEP approved reporting forms. So they'll help us keep the records that we're required to keep for MS4. So they're going to that training session next week.
Okay.
So, yes.
Have these records not been kept before
Well, I mean, this is
or inadequate?
fairly new.
It's a new
So
program.
new program.
All right.
Well, let's you and I stick that on our agenda for Friday morning and talk about whether we can do something on MS4.
Sure.
All right, solicitor, I take it you're going to hold your report for our executive session?
Yes.
Unfinished business.
We talked about doing this meeting, at the fire hall,
That's in November. Right.
which is next month.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
That's our
I
action
see.
items.
Okay.
that's been fixed, right?
I'm
Any
not
dates been
quick
fixed?
on the uptake. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
any
don't
other
hear,
unfinished
I
business?
don't read.
I just, the comment I made to you before we started, I don't think you heard about painting the lines on Swiftly Ridge Drive. My suggestion would be painting the curve that's at the top of the road and the curve at the bottom of the road. There's about 200 feet in between there. I don't think really needs painted.
Okay. And we were gonna go with a single yellow line, just,
And the shrubbery that needs cut is the shrubbery that's on the right-hand side of Sewickley Ridge Circle
Mhm.
as you're facing the tennis courts.
Mhm.
You can't
yes, on
see-
the right, on
yeah,
that.
By the pond.
Yes,
You
that's
can't,
the
you
one.
can't see anything.
Do we have any idea of when that's going to happen?
I will check with the guys and see, we'll see how they are on this current project and see when we can fit in, and we'll try to get it done soon.
Any other unfinished business? Okay, new business. Nobody. All right, action items. Pension analysis. Gwen?
It's coming, it's gonna be part of the budget, the draft budget will be the proposed change in the pension program. And with the structure proposed as part of the budget process, and then probably in the beginning of the new year, we'll get it actually set up that way.
Okay. Industrial park occupancy.
I received a list of buildings and tenants and vacancies from the manager of the industrial park. I showed it to Bill Davis of the Water Authority, and he felt that it wasn't super current, might need some revisions based on who he knows are the tenants in there as he reads the meters. So he was gonna update it a little more and get it back for us, but then we at least have a listing of the spaces and the bays that the Overlook, Oxford Development manages. So we're starting.
Have you seen any activity down at the Vesuvius building? Because I have not.
I have not. Occasionally there's a car there and a light
Yeah,
on, but
that's-
nothing, no construction.
Okay. As I recall, they had to add some parking spaces.
They did. Yeah, and they're gonna do some interior renovations.
Yeah, so they're going to move some dirt sooner or later.
Okay, Glen Mitchell Road cleanup. Why don't I handle this? I sent a email to the president of the the Sewickley, I guess, borough council. And Susan Alashir sent me an email back, and I'll read that to the board here. Hi, Matt. Kevin and I went to Sewickley's property on Glen Mitchell Road on Friday. Please know that it was the first time I've been there and I couldn't find it from the road. I've lived in Sewickley for 20 years and I've never noticed it. Our Public Works Department continues to clean and organize the materials at the site. At this point, 4 dumpsters have been loaded and removed. 2 dumpsters are scheduled for October and 2 for November. I can tell you that there is a real effort being made to get this property cleaned and organized. I'm not sure if you are aware that there is an existing non-conforming use for this property, so I'm not sure how it is in violation of the ordinance below. I had sent her the ordinance that we think it may be in violation of. Also, this site is being considered as a possible location for our salt shed. At this point, no decisions have been made. I will follow up with monthly visits and update you with the progress being made. Thank you for bringing this concern to my attention, Susan. So I want to, for my part, before we even have any further discussion, I want to thank Susan. I sent this email on Wednesday or Thursday, and she was down there looking at it within 2 days. So I was very, very pleased at her quick response, and I know Susan through the COG.
Right, I know Susan.
And it might be the first time the COG has ever accomplished anything that I think was worthwhile, because she and I got to know each other and I knew who to reach out to. So I appreciate that effort from Susan. I mean, with that, I kind of kick it over to the board. It seems to me that they're saying, and remember, we had been told October was our extended date. Now she seems as if she's saying October, November.
Point out to the board members, our township code provision that deals with having storage facilities.
Right.
Not part of the zoning code.
Right. In the township ordinances, not the zoning ordinances, in the township ordinances, we have an ordinance. It's section 232-1. And it says in pertinent part, it shall be unlawful for any corporation to operate or conduct a business within the township as a junk dealer, or to use or be allowed to use his, her, or its property as a junkyard, salvage yard, or other place used and maintained for the collection, storage, and disposal of used and secondhand goods and materials without first obtaining a license to operate such business with the township from the township secretary. And that was adopted in 1963. So,
Well, it talks about a corporation conducting a business that might not apply to the borough, using it, their property as a storage facility.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess the question is, what, if any, action do we want to take at this point?
Well,
That is the question.
my suggestion is let's monitor what they do over the next month or two. And
Okay.
then revisit it.
That's what I would do. It sounds like she's gonna keep an eye on it.
Yep. Good.
And give her time to follow through.
All right, I hear no action being taken.
Correct.
Okay, next, future meeting location, November 14th workshop. Commissioner Scholar, did you want to handle this?
Oh, I checked.
What am I supposed to handle?
I don't know, you brought it up earlier. I thought
Well,
you wanted to talk about
We
it.
talked about it, and we talked about how we were gonna advertise it, and I think, was it George that came up with, or somebody putting signs up, which I liked, that was an easy way to do it.
We did confirm with the fire chief that we can use the building. He will help set it up for residents. And I tried to run the ad in the Herald, but the Herald is a subsidiary of the Tribune Review, which is going out of business. So we, it's going to be a digital.
The Herald's going
The
out of
Herald- well,
business?
It's
Oh,
going to
no.
be certain things, certain aspects of their publishing company are going to be digital, and legal requirements have to be published in an actual newspaper. So we got a notice from them saying that we're going to have to find a new source of advertising for our legal ads. So the deadline she gave me was different, so I may be able to get these two in before the end of that, but it also, by the way, we have to find a new newspaper, but we can address that.
So that may go digital.
Some of it is, yeah. Like they're closing certain of their Greensburg ones or regional papers. So I don't think the Herald's going out of business, but their format is changing so that the legal ads
Oh, okay.
can't be used by us to advertise.
But you think you could get it under the,
I'm gonna try. I think so. But otherwise, we'll find a place to advertise it. We will do signs, and we are gonna do some kind of postcard mailing to the residents.
okay,
to let
that's
them know.
good.
Okay, and that's, I mean, we are not going to meet again before that meeting. So is that to say that you're going to take care of all of that?
Boy, sure.
I mean,
Yes.
do you,
No, yeah, I
I'm
can.
here to help, but,
Okay,
but
yes.
we're not going to meet again
Yes.
between now and then. So you've got
Yes,
to let us
I
know.
will, yes, I'll bounce it off of you if I have any questions, but just print out the postcard and mail it.
And that's going to go out to all residents other than Masonic and Sewickley Heights Manor, right?
That's, yes, it can go out to whatever populations you want, but it's specifically gonna target that other, those other neighborhoods that aren't served by their own internal newsletter.
And we should inform Commissioner Scholar that we were in touch with a block captain,
Louis Travis.
Louis Trapezzana, and asked him if he would distribute postcards in person as well.
Where is he a block captain?
Well, he lives in, on South McCoy.
We just reached out to him and asked him because he came in and said that he wanted to, when he applied for a job as
Right.
commissioner.
Where does he live?
South McCoy,
He's the one whose house is up for sale. I guess.
yes.
Okay.
So my question to
He's
you
a
is, are there
block
other people that you think would be worth us reaching out to? Don't get hung up in the name block captain. I just threw that
You
out.
made that up, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm saying is, are there other people that you think would be worth us giving postcards to and asking to help us communicate?
How are you doing postcard? You're not mailing.
I was gonna mail them.
If no, that's okay.
No, I don't really know.
All right.
I don't recall what was in the correspondence to Will White about the newsletter for Masonic.
Mhm.
Did you mention in there about having?
I did, but I don't think I confirmed with him the date because it was unsure yet. I gave him the
Okay.
schedule and I said one of them was going to be moved probably to the fire hall, but I didn't give him the official.
Okay, would you do that?
Sure.
Because then I will, once that hits the street, so to speak, I'll have Karen let people know that we could have a small bus going over there if we can get it 8 people. 9 people, yeah, 8 people. If they don't, they don't. Thank you.
All right. Citizen participation? Nothing.
Nothing.
All right, at this time, it is 8 o'clock on the dot. We are going to go into executive session to discuss future and present litigation. Is that correct, Solicitor Stone?
Correct.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.